go with another episode of this series that I have really personally enjoyed doing. I hope you guys have enjoyed watching this as well. Essentially, I'm going through previous years to talk about albums that I have changed my mind on. A lot of YouTubers that have done this series, a lot of reviewers out there that have done this series, have essentially collectively put albums into one video, but I thought it was more interesting to just hone in on specific years and make this into an ongoing series. And I started with, I think I started with 2018. No, did I? No, I started with 2017, then I went to 2018, and now we've gone in a weird order and gone back to 2016, mostly because I thought it would be good to just keep this up and go through as many previous years as I can until I run out of years that I can do this kind of video for. So although it looks inconsistent, you can see what I was doing. I just was playing the field, testing the water with the first video, noticed that people were responding well to it, so why not just keep going and give you guys more content in this series. As always, I'll start off with an album that grew off me, and then I'll go into something that grew on me, and then I'll go back and forth until I've hit 10 different albums, and 5 that grew off me and 5 that grew on me. Pretty good stuff. Hopefully you enjoy, and click subscribe too if you have not already. If you stumbled upon this video randomly and you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Lots of content on this channel all the time. Do just subscribe. I'm gonna start with an artist that I think over time I still really like this guy, but I think over time I've just not been as excited with his music, and that is Aesop Rock. Look, this is the thing. He's very good. He has really good albums. I think he has an incredible skill when it comes to rapping, rhyming, using the most vocabulary that I think you'll probably ever find in hip hop. I'm sure there was like some kind of study done on this, and I think he was like up there in the top 5. I wouldn't even be surprised if he was like top 1. If he was the top guy in hip hop with the vocab, the range of vocab, I wouldn't even question it. I'd believe anyone who said that he was. And what's interesting is that the Impossible Kid was dubbed as his most accessible album to date, and it was at the time. In fact, it was quite clearly his most accessible album to date, and even now I still think it is. But I think most accessible for Aesop is just like throwing in some catchy choruses, and everything else is still wordy and kind of jumbly, and you have to kind of read into everything he says, and it just can be over convoluted and over complicated, when I don't necessarily think everything needs to be that way. And what's actually grown off me the most with this album is not that his rapping is bad. I think it is actually just the beats on this thing. I actually don't think they are as strong as I remember them being. I remember when this album first came out, I was like, this is amazing. This is one of the best albums of 2016, one of the best albums of the decade. This is one of the best things in hip-hop I've ever heard. And 5 years on, I kind of look back and go, where was I getting that idea from? Because I just don't think these tracks are sounding as fresh as they once were. But they're not bad. They don't sound bad. They just sound pretty good. And I still think tracks are quite fun. Some really enjoyable choruses. I think Rings is fantastic, one of his best songs. Blood Sandwich, really good too. Lots of great moments on this thing. But yeah, I just don't think it sticks a landing from start to finish. It's still really good though, but just not amazing or anything like that. If you think that was controversial though, I've got 4 more to talk about from 2016. And yeah, I don't know how many subscribers I'll have by the end of this video though. Next I want to mention GoGo Penguin. I've been championing GoGo Penguin on this channel for quite a while now. So anyone that has been keeping up with my videos know that, they did make my honorable mentions for 2020. Wouldn't be that surprised to see that their 2016 album has grown on me quite a lot since it came out. I used to think this band was good, and they put out really nice jazz music, but I don't think I quite really fully realized how good they were. Man-Made Object is just stellar. When you see so much in the UK jazz scene getting hyped up and getting, you know, praised, Shabaka Hutchins is one of the main guys, I think, at the moment. You know, every project and side project he's a part of will get praised to hell, and it's not like it's unwarranted, but I just think, actually, you know what, when you dig deeper, there is actually lots of UK jazz that's really, really impressive, and GoGo Penguin are up there at the moment as being one of the best to come out of the UK. They are incredibly talented, their music is absolutely stunning. I just think when I first heard this, it was like, yeah, cool, but no, this has aged really well. This has aged really, really well, and I just want people to stop sleeping on GoGo Penguin, please. Going back to Grown Off Me, this is another one where, you know, I don't necessarily think I've completely flipped and 180'd on it, but it just isn't as impressive anymore, and the band in general just don't impress me anymore, really. But that is King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. I just, again, used to think these guys were like the best thing in the world when they first jumped onto the scene. Not necessarily initially, I think it took me a few years to catch up with their stuff. But once it hit 2017 and they dropped like 97 albums, and personally I don't think any of them were that great, it just kind of got really tiring listening to them, and their style and their gimmicks just kind of get a bit annoying. And Not Gone Infinity actually probably still is my favourite album of theirs, which kind of makes this ironic putting this in this video, to say that it's my favourite album of theirs, and yet I'm still calling it an album that's really grown off me. But similarly with Aesop, this was like a masterpiece, amazing, 9 out of 10 quality, adore this thing. And now I just go back to it and think, yeah, it's pretty fun, but, you know, they're not really doing anything that I'm that enamoured by anymore. And I think, again, the amount of music that they put out in such a short period of time has just tired me out. Every new album I listen to from them, I'm just like, this still isn't that great. And I think that can really hinder your experience with the band, actually. I think less is more. You don't need to keep putting out so many albums in a short period of time. Rockhampton, for example, because it just starts getting a bit meh, and then you get a bit bored of what they're doing, and then you go back to their older stuff and you think, actually, they haven't progressed that much, and yet they've put out like 6 albums. And that's kind of what I think with King Gizzard. It's still a good album, but I just don't think I love it as much anymore. Next, I want to mention Kae Tempest, who is an artist that I think is one of the best UK rappers ever, actually. And not only rapping, but poetry and spoken word poetry that connects with me in ways that so many artists struggle to achieve in music, like just in music in general. But to make an album that is so dedicated to, you know, the spoken word aspect of it, and it still resonates, is just amazing. Let Them Eat Chaos is just a depiction of the UK in a period of time where things were just so confusing and so unanswered and so disorienting for many people in the UK. I mean, this album tackles class, this album tackles everything. I can't even begin to imagine wealth, poverty, just social issues in a way that you just can't find anywhere else. Like, honestly, if you are such a big fan of like Kendrick, for example, who is a man that just manages to tick every box on all of his albums, Kae Tempest might be the UK version of that in many ways, in that there's just so much to unpack, and the music sounds great, the beats are often really, really fantastic too, and you just get so much from what Kae is saying on these tracks. It's insane, and at the time I just thought it was a letdown after the debut album from 2014. But I don't know why I thought that now, because this is stellar. I don't know what it was that, you know, changed in me, but yeah, one of a kind. Back to a more negative one, I'm afraid. We do have Denzel Curry. Again, not really that negative because I still think Denzel is good, but I don't know if Imperialism is as impressive anymore as it used to be. I still will say ULT is like Denzel's probably best song. Like, I still think that might be Denzel's best song, but I have grown off this album a little bit, mostly because I don't know if it's as hype as I once thought it was. And to be honest, Denzel's upped the ante since this album. Like, I think his Zoo album might have been the hypest music he's put out to date. It had mixed results in places, I will say that. But, you know, I think at the time I was just so, like, energized by listening to these tracks. And nowadays, I don't know if Denzel impresses me as much anymore. Mostly because when you read into a lot of his bars, he kind of just says anything. And it's gotten worse, actually. It's gotten way worse since this album, to the point where, like, everything he's putting out these days, I'd barely call good. But I still have faith in him. But yeah, I think Imperial at the time just really clicked with me, and I'm not sure I view it in that same way anymore. A talent that I think needs to hone it in, needs to just sit down and just pay a bit more attention to the words he's writing, and he could put out one of the best albums of the year. But I don't think he does that. I think a lot of the time he finds something that rhymes, he'll say it, and it's all good, and just call it a day. But I think he just needs to be a bit more focused with his words, and I think albums like Imperial could have remained to be absolutely fantastic, but over time, it's just grown off me. Next, I want to mention a band who I think are really quite underrated. Now, underrated gets overused, but I think the Hotelier do actually get underrated. I think they are pretty well known amongst the emo crowd, the Midwest emo crowd, the indie rock crowd. They're a recognizable name, but a lot of people tend to just dismiss them and call them, you know, bands that are just regurgitating sounds from the 90s. And they are obviously influenced from that era, there's no denying that. But they're not just that. I'm not trying to start beefs or name names in a bitchy, shady, you know, argumentative way. I'm not trying to do that. But there was a time where I just regurgitated a lot of what Anthony Fantano said. And I still respect the guy. I think his reviews are obviously very good. Like I say, this isn't an attack. But I think I was just at an age where everything he said, I just thought, oh yeah, I believe it. I believe everything he says. His opinion, I'm going to repeat it because, you know, I'm young and I'm just going to do that. But these days, I look back and kind of get embarrassed by that because I used to just agree with what he said about the Hotelier. But this album actually, aside from all the naked people on the front cover, because I still don't get that, but is really good. It's really bloody good. It's passionate. The vocals are fantastic. The singing, you know, is just really on point. Every word is sold incredibly well. The songs are produced really well. The tracks are catchy. They have really, you know, explosive choruses and fantastic instrumental moments. Sun might be one of their best tracks. There's just a lot here that I love, and I think they are a lot better than what they're given credit for. I don't think they are just one of those bands who repeats old sounds. They aren't that. I don't think they are at all. And that's why they are on this list, because I have truly changed my mind on this album. I think it's great. I think I deserve a bit of a break with this next one because it's not really that controversial. So I'm going to just throw this one out there. And I think a lot of people will probably agree anyway. But YG Still Brazy isn't the West Coast hip-hop classic I think it was dubbed as at the time it came out. Honestly, I kind of get confused with how much I thought this album was great. But it actually just never was that great. Mostly because I don't think YG's approach is very creative. It's okay. He has a lot of fantastic tracks on this thing, actually. I still think, you know, the title track itself, Still Brazy, is great. It's a great, catchy little tune. Twist My Fingers as well is so good. I feel like that track deserved to be like a huge, TikTok anthem, obviously before TikTok was a thing, but I could totally imagine that track being on TikTok now and some like kids and teens doing like a dance to what he's saying in the chorus. I don't know, I picture it, and I feel like it was a track that was, you know, deserving of that kind of fame, but it never really got it. Maybe it could be a sleeper hit. I don't know, TikTok works in weird ways. Honestly, it's very confusing, but yeah, I think that track deserved something like that. But yeah, overall, I think the tracks are just decent. Some really weak tracks, I will say that, like it can go from great to really mediocre in just one switch of a song. And I still don't think Fuck Donald Trump was that good of a track anyway. I don't know, that track got really hailed as being like a new world in politically charged music, and there was supposed to be like a sea of new rappers coming through with like every track being about, you know, anti-Donald Trump and shit. I remember people at the time just being like, oh yeah, music's going to get so political now. It's going to get so political. Oh my god, politics in music is what we need. We needed it. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. I tell you, bro, it's going to happen. And you know what? It didn't ever happen. Like ever. It just didn't. But even aside from that, the track is just kind of corny. Like that chorus, I don't know, man, I'm not really that big a fan of it. But even still, regardless of that one particular track, I just don't think this album is like the West Coast classic that people dubbed it as at the time. And even I was jumping on that train too. Next, I want to mention Chairlift, who is fronted by Caroline Polachek, who, again, was a band at the time that I enjoyed. But I didn't quite actually realise how great these tracks are. Like, they're really well produced and really, really just straight to the point pop tunes that have great details packed within them and a great vocalist to front these kinds of tracks as well. Compared to Caroline's solo work, which I think is quite good, I think there are some fantastic tracks in her solo work, but I don't know, I think listening to Pang from front to back made me want to go back to this and check to see actually what their old stuff was like, and it just really grew on me. I think it became quite clear that this, again, like the Hotelier, is underrated. People at the time were talking about this album, but no one was really praising it that much. But I think if you were one of those people, go back to this album, because I think it would grow on you. I think it really would. I think for what music criticism was like in 2016 compared to what it is like now, because it's only 5 years, but there was like this weird, you know, weird thing with pop music at the time. Some critics just weren't as open as being like, you know, oh, actually, I love pop music. And I think now an album like this would shine in this era where people are just so pop-timistic. I don't know if I even like that term, but it just has had this weird sea change where, you know, critics just kind of did a 180 on pop music or pop-sounding music. And I think this album would fare up better now. So go back to it if you were one that didn't like it to begin with. Finally, for the albums that grew off me from 2016, not really one to end on. But Kero, Bonito, I don't know what I was smoking, man, but it's just a bit much, this album. It's just a bit much. I don't know what, at the time, maybe I was just like, you know what, give me something sugary and sweet and I will take it. And I just saw this album and thought, well, it's the only thing I've looked at, but I will take it. I have no other options. I haven't even considered any other options. This is the only one. It's like, you know, like those people that are so desperate to be in relationships all the time. I just can't be single. It's been like 3 weeks. I just can't be single. Oh, they're giving me attention. I'll have him. It must have been how I was like with this album, because clearly that's what I did. And I don't know, it just isn't that great anymore. I know this is a beloved cult classic for a lot of people, and I respect it. I'm not going to take that away from you, but I think it just actually is a bit annoying. The vocals are a bit annoying. It's, again, too happy-go-lucky sort of thing. Everything's just so... rainbow. And I don't know, I can be in the mood for that occasionally, but not really this band anymore. And even some of their newer stuff actually hasn't clicked with me very much at all. So yeah, just not for me anymore. You're not going to like that. You're not going to agree. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry for that. But finally, we want to end on a positive note. We are ending on a pretty obvious one, but I couldn't leave it out because this is a 2016 album. At the time I was like, yeah, this is good, but I kind of forgot about it, kind of forgot. And then suddenly it was like in my top 10 of the 2010s. So like, if that's not worthy of this list, I don't know what is, because that's the biggest grower, I think, maybe in the history of my life. But we have Regina Spektor with Remember Us to Life. She just hit that age where everything she said was so well thought out. And for modern singer-songwriters, they should be looking at Regina and thinking, okay, that's how I write a song. Because all of these tracks, I think, are just so thoughtful. And so many of these lyrics just linger and have really interesting, just interesting ways of kind of like making their way into your brain and making you go, wow. That's a line right there. And I have already done a video on this, so I don't want to go into too much detail because I would rather you just see that video, because obviously all the detail is packed into that one. But basically what I'm trying to say is this is just special for me. I think a lot of people don't really give her the credit she deserves. I truly think since the 2000s and beyond, she's been one of the best singer-songwriters of our time. Like, I truly do believe it. And she has such an expressive way of using her voice. And I think so many younger singer-songwriters should look at her and go, well, that's how you got to do it. That's how you got to do it. And I hope people realize that one day and start using what she puts in her music in their own music. And that's just how special I think this album is. So yeah, thank you for watching the video. 5 grown off me's, 5 grown on me's. So positives and negatives all over the place in this video. Oh, I am tired. But I hope you enjoyed what I had to say here. Let me know your thoughts on these albums. Let me know your thoughts on what grew off you and grew on you since 2016. Would love to know your thoughts. It's probably a good year to look at because it's been 5 years. So there's probably quite a lot of changes, I think. And certainly a lot of changes for me. And yeah, definitely want to hear your thoughts. So thank you for watching this video. Have a good day. Subscribe if you haven't already. And goodbye.